What's that? Who there? Whoa.
The ayahuasca journey you had and the experience, which really, it seems like kicked off this like whole second, wave of your life. I think it'll be interesting to talk about because, some people know what ayahuasca is, some people don't. But the people that do know what it is, it's very rare that they get the opportunity to hear like, transparently, authentically about the experience from someone. And you're someone that will cross over with this audience and can kind of be a voice around that. So I'd love for you to just talk about like what that experience was like. And I know it helps cure the addiction, but what else coming out of it? Like were you just shot out of a cannon coming out of it, focused, refocusing, or just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And this is again, something like maybe we have to do another episode to go deeper. There's so much around psychedelics in general. And I'm such an advocate that recently I've joined a psychedelic venture fund called Vine Ventures as an advisor and a director. Just because I'm so passionate about the changes it helped in my life. I've also, though, seen a lot of my friends like, hey, man, these results are amazing. Go on retreat and come back. And for sure, 100%, you're likely to have, I won't say for everyone, but very likely, and people are different depending on their mental state. But if you're mentally healthy, you're very likely to have this period of 30 days to 3 months of just ability to implement intense change and new habits and where you feel like on fire. However, after that 1 month to 3 month period, if you didn't take advantage of the time to change habit, with things like a daily mindfulness practice, relationships, removing negative habits, it becomes, you're almost back where you started in some ways. And so what really was profound for me is the ayahuasca was great. It gave me that window to make change. And so when I came back, I wasn't even thinking about alcohol. I had a very strong intention. I wasn't thinking about drugs. I was like, okay, I'm going to be sober and I'm going to get my life in gear here. And I felt super pumped about it. But I met my fiance right after that, who's extremely healthy. She's a registered dietitian. She's brilliant. And she got me into, a lot of the stuff I'm doing today. So Wim Hof, cold exposure, hot, cold, saunas. And it was combining her support, the ayahuasca experience itself, and then the social aspects of, the hot, cold as something to do in the evenings. And then a daily mindfulness practice that really led to the entire change. So I would say that psychedelic medicine's extremely powerful, but used on their own, you'll have this window to make change. However, if that's the only tool in your arsenal, it's unlikely you'll maximize the results. I still have an extremely beautiful experience. And what I mean by beautiful, so, something that stands out from that first experience, it was 4 ayahuasca journeys, in the jungle, taking a tiny boat into an area with huts on stilts over the river, which is wild and quite scary also, and very intense. But the feeling, there's a part of your mind that's just thinking all the time. The neocortex / default mode network, you may have heard of this term, and it's the part of our brain that takes in all the inputs and generates stories for safety. So our brain is like a computer in that way. You're not every time looking oh, that's a light, that's a tree. Your brain knows, and it takes in these inputs and generates stories, and these stories become our identity. And so our identity is, I run a podcast, or I'm a male. This is my favorite sports team. I'm funny. I'm brave. These are things we make up. They're constructs. It's very hard to see that the way we live our life. And what psychedelic medicines do, that part of the brain shuts down. And as a result, new connections start happening. And so this idea, this identity that you hold so firmly to, and the default mode network develops and sort of solidifies, becomes harder to change later in life. So you're 30, your patterns are pretty established. And so you're in this pathway, okay, I get up, I want to work because it's important, I'm successful, right? That's a construct. And so psychedelics just help, all that stuff fades away. And you're whoa, this isn't me, And then you may even feel so connected because you don't feel this I. So it's, you just feel connected to others. So I was feeling in the room like, wow, we're all the same. It doesn't matter. And it's easy to say that. And like, yeah, I get it. People are equal. But to actually feel it creates change, right? It creates this like mystical experience people have that then provides support for behavior change later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this idea, and I haven't gone through a journey that, that deep. I've experimented here and there, but it's like that ego death idea where it basically gives you, like what you're saying at the beginning, it gives you space to think differently. And I mean, the way you're describing it, like it's crazy to me that everybody is not, in line / mandated to go through these types of experiences once in a while, right? Just as like a reset to try to reconnect with like what is actually going on out there. Like it seems wild,
So this is what led me to create our newest business, and just the combination of the meditation and the hot cold and the psychedelic medicines for me is like, for the first time in my life, I felt super happy. It's just kind of coincidental. Became pretty successful at Ethereum, and that was fantastic. But I felt like every day, like, wow, I fucking feel good. I feel good about myself. Like, I'm doing the right thing. I have this amazing partner. I just felt so full. And so I wanted to teach people about these things. I'm like, man, psychedelic medicine, like read Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. And the responses were very difficult. Like meditation has so much friction to learn. So, I have a friend, super high performer. People would probably know him if I mentioned his name on here. Amazing entrepreneur. Meditated 300 times last year, which is already like, he's so disciplined. And he came to me and was like, I don't know if I'm getting anything out of this. I think I might quit. And it's like, wow, if you're putting in that much effort and you're like the most disciplined person I know, and you're about to quit, like, okay, that's tough. Like, how is the normal person going to access these things? And, only 86% of people, or only 14% of people have a mindfulness practice after all the stuff you've heard about meditation, yoga. It's just very hard, and the feedback cycle is long. So I looked at that, and then the psychedelic medicines, you're like, wow, everyone needs to try this. And it depends on your mental state. There's some dangers associated and like, where you're doing it, but it's illegal. And I'm like telling my mom about it. And she's like, yeah, I read Michael Pollan's book, but like, you're kind of just doing drugs. I was like, okay. Yeah, okay. And so I'm just, really trying to get people into these things, and it's rapidly changing. So MDMA is likely to be legal for therapy in 2023. I think it will for PTSD. I think shortly after will be available for couples, and that will kind of open the doorway because it's less scary. It's a very beautiful experience. You feel super connected to your heart. If you struggle with self-love, and like you're always your own critic, it can immediately open you up, help you feel connected to others, less worried about what people think about you, which is a struggle for me for many years. So I think we're on the way to what you said is, it's just very common for people as part of their life to have one guided experience. It's very common for a couple to do this once a year. And hopefully in 10 years from now, that's where we're at. But I kind of looked at that and was like, okay, I know I have these tools, but I can't get people into them. So what can we do? And that's what sort of started sparking some of these new interests.